asking the right questions is crucial to being a great leader, because asking the right questions is a crucial step to getting the right answers. Well, today I'm going to be talking about 4 questions that, if you're in leadership of any sort, you should be asking yourself and your team all the time. Let's discuss. Hi, I'm Ben Kosh at leadershipjetway.com, and I want to give you a flying start on your leadership journey by talking about what leadership is and how to do it, helping you shape your priorities and make the time to work on them, and showing you how to communicate and engage with your team. And this episode is all about asking the right questions, and it's important that you do that every day. So I have something for you. It's my daily checklist that you can use to plan your day in just 5 minutes. It's 1 page, it's really simple, and it really keeps you on top of your key leadership priorities. You can get it at leadershipjetway.com/checklist. There's a link to that in the description. It's my gift for you. Go and grab it. It will really help you out. Okay, now, today we're talking about 4 general questions that you need to have running around in your head all the time, especially if you're in a crisis or emergency, but also just all the time as you're talking with your team, as you're watching the world. You should be asking yourself these 4 things. Number 1, what's happening? Number 2, what's the impact on my team? Number 3, how am I going to communicate about it? And number 4, what are we going to do about it? And together, these 4 questions take you through my mantra of what leadership is, which is understanding what's going on, working out what we're going to do, and working with people to actually do it. Okay? Asking these 4 questions gives you a way to do these things, to actually do leadership. So let's look at them one at a time, starting with question 1. What's happening? Well, it's kind of an obvious question, and usually it's the quickest one to answer. What's happening is the board have changed the policy, or the government might be about to introduce some new regulations, or there's a worldwide pandemic and everyone's working at home all of a sudden. Usually you can put your finger on what's happening pretty quickly, but when you've done that, it's almost always worth digging under the surface a little, getting past asking just what's happening and asking what's really happening. What's the bigger picture here? What's the overall direction that this stuff is fitting into? If you're in leadership, you should be trying to understand what's happening on more than just one level. You need to appreciate the wider story as well as the details, because that bigger picture can be crucial in how you think things through, how you deal with the other questions we're going to talk about. So in the COVID pandemic, the what's happening was obvious. New infectious disease was spreading, and governments were taking significant action to try to limit the spread, protect lives, and try to hold infections at a level that that health services could cope with. But underneath all that, the leaders I know were looking ahead, thinking about how long restrictions might last, whether those restrictions might come in for their businesses, and how those restrictions might play out over time with different levels of lockdown coming in and coming out, how those different levels of lockdown will affect the other businesses around me that I rely on. Will some of them be able to stay open, others close? Do you see what I'm getting at? You have to do 2 things. 1, you have to go deeper and get to the story behind the story, and 2, cast your eyes forward to what's coming 2 or 3 paces down the line. And then when you've done that, ask question 2. What's the impact on my team? As a leader, you have to think about wide impacts, the impact on the national economy and on the sector and on your business as a whole if you're just responsible for a small team within it somewhere. But then you also have to narrow down to the specific impacts on your team. What will they be thinking? How will they be feeling? How will what's happening change what we do in our work? So in the global pandemic, for some teams, the impact was we're probably going to be closed for a while. We might have to close permanently. For other teams, the big impact was we're all going to be working at home for a while. And then there are follow-on impacts about having access to IT and actually being able to get the job done. but also people's mental health, caring responsibilities, homeschooling, and so on. As the leader, whatever's happening, when you look at the impact on your team, you have to be thinking about both the impact on your business operation and how you get stuff done, and the impact on your people, your human people with their messy, complicated lives and emotions. So if what's happening is the company is laying off 200 people, the impacts on your team might be, we're going to have to do the same amount of work with fewer people, but also people are going to be scared for their jobs, for their futures, angry at the situation. And you have to take both sides into account, okay? Then we get to question 3. How are we going to communicate about this? Now, you might be thinking, hang on, you've got this in the wrong order, Ben. You need to work out what you're going to do before you communicate to the team. And sometimes you're right. Sometimes it's so obvious what you need to do that you work it out so quickly you can swap the deciding what to do and communicating around, right? And do the deciding what to do first and then do the communicating. But whenever things are complicated, actually, you really want to communicate first before you work out what you're going to do. And the reason for that is because when something big is happening, your team will want reassurance that you've noticed something's happening and that you understand the impact on them. And they'll want that reassurance as quickly as possible. Deciding what to do often takes time. It's tricky, it can be complicated. And if you wait to communicate until you've decided what to do, you'll be creating a delay, adding a break in the process. And in that delay, fear and uncertainty will build, rumors start, people make up stories in their heads, share them with their friends. And all of that stuff gets in the way when you do finally communicate. Not only have you got to explain what's happening and the impact on them, you have to break apart all the rumours and worries that are built up as well, which makes communicating harder. So communicate early, literally saying, this is what's happened, this is what it means for us, I'm working on what we're going to do about it. Okay. You might have to say things like, there are still things we don't know, or what we do is going to depend a little bit on what these other people do. We have to wait for them to decide what they're doing before we work out our moves. But meanwhile, we're going to concentrate on this. Okay? When things are happening, communicate early, communicate often. Even if you have nothing to say, tell them you have nothing to say, that things haven't moved on. You have no new information. One of the jobs of leaders, especially when things are complicated, is to carry the weight of uncertainty for the team. Let them know that the uncertainty is okay. It's just how things are right now. We're still here, going about our normal business, and we'll keep going with that until the uncertainty filters away into something more certain. So the key thing is, gone round in circles a bit, but key thing is, even if you don't know what you're going to do about what's happening, communicate about what's happening. Let your team know you see it. Let them know that you see the impact on them. And let them know you're working out what to do, which is question 4. What are we going to do about it? Yeah, you have to figure out what you and your team are going to do, but you don't have to figure it out on your own. Engage with your team. Talk to your best people. Talk to the people who are most impacted by what's happening. Ask them what they think you should do. Use conversations with your team to shape your ideas and build a plan. Also, by talking with your team, they will see you engaging with the problem and be reassured that things are in hand. When things get complicated, my natural introvert tendency, I can't speak, my natural introvert tendency tends to make me want to shut myself away and think. And sometimes I do have to do that. But I also force myself out into conversations with people, partly because I know my team want to know that I'm on top of things. And talking with them is a way to show them that I'm on it, I'm engaged, I'm figuring out what's going on. But most importantly, I get out and talk to my team because they're a goldmine. And they always have crucial insights and ideas that help us work out what to do. As often as not, they just work out what we should do and they're right. And we say, yep, that's what we're doing. Go with it. And by the way, when you have worked out what to do, you should communicate again. Okay, so tell everyone what you're doing. Update them regularly. Communicate when things are happening. And then you go around the cycle again. Ask yourself again, what's happening? Has anything changed? Okay. What's the impact? How should we communicate? What are we going to do? If you're in an emergency, you might do this once an hour or even once every 15 minutes if it's really bad. If you're in normal times, you might do this once a week or once a month. But these 4 questions form the backbone of so much of doing leadership, which, like I said earlier, for me is figuring out what's going on, working out what we need to do, and then working with people to get it done. All right, there you are. 4 questions that should be on every leader's mind all the time. What's happening? What's the impact on the team? How are we going to communicate about it? What are we going to do? And like I said, if you want to ask yourself the right questions every day to plan your day in just 5 minutes, go get my 1-page daily checklist at leadershipjetway.com/checklist. All right, we're just about done. Please leave me a comment. Let me know the leadership questions you ask yourself every day. Thank you for subscribing for regular content for new leaders about what leadership is and how to do it, and how to do it well. And it's great for me to know you're watching and listening. I will see you very soon. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye.